Coalition is holding its annual conference this weekend in Las Vegas. It comes as the GOP is feeling renewed by a drop in approval polls for the Biden administration, the upset win in the Virginia gubernatorial race, and growing confidence that the party can retake Congress in the 2022 midterms. Now, the RGC event attracted many of the politicians who are tipped as possible presidential candidates in 2024, including Mike Pompeo, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, Ted Cruz, and Mike Pence. But two big names are missing. The late billionaire Sheldon Adelson, was a major funder of the RJC, and of course the party in general, and former President Donald Trump. Well, for more, let's go to Ron Campius, Washington Bureau Chief for the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, JTA, who speaks to us from Las Vegas. And Ron, I hope not everything in Vegas stays in Vegas, because I want to know, how are those Jewish Republicans feeling in their first get-together, national get-together, since they lost the White House?
They're feeling ebullient, in the words of Matt Brooks, the RJC's executive director, and he's not exaggerating. I mean, there was just a lot of really good cheer and optimism in the hallways, and in the speeches themselves, and in the chats people were having with one another. One of the things they're really happy about is that Glenn Youngkin in winning in Virginia showed that Republicans could win on a domestic issue, education, and that's, Republicans win on foreign policy, they win on national security. They can win on taxes. Education's a new one for them, and so they're very, very happy about making inroads there.
All right. Well, I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. But let me ask you. I mentioned those big names that are there. Who is the Jewish vote going to go to in the primary if we see these heavyweights, Pompeo, DeSantis, Nikki Haley, take on each other in the primary?
I asked that question, and nobody wanted to answer. The question was was always answered. We want to look forward to 2022. We want to look forward to 2022, the congressional elections. But off the record, people would tell you they don't want to answer because they don't want to make Donald Trump angry. And Donald Trump wasn't there. He delivered a video message, but he was very much there in the sense that the Republicans are seeking a way, and this was a first major post-Tuesday, post-Virginia Republican event, and they're seeking a way to win while also trying to navigate away from Donald Trump, whom they see as a liability in some cases, but they don't want to alienate him. They don't want to alienate his base, so they don't want to say, I favor Nikki Haley, who's very obvious because of her UN service, and or Mike Pompeo, who's an obvious one because he also was very pro-Israel as Secretary of State.
Right. You mentioned Donald Trump. Let's talk about him in particular. Of course, we just had this situation where his remark about that the Israel-owned Congress raised a lot of concern in the Jewish community. On the other hand, of course, his policies towards Israel are, of course, wins him support among Jewish Republicans. What is the attitude there towards Donald Trump in the RJC?
There's a lot, there is a lot of gratitude towards him because of his, what he did for Israel, exactly what you said. But he's seen as a liability, and not just because of first of all, this is a group that wants to attract more Jewish voters to the party. And Trump is not the way to do that. He alienates a lot of Jewish voters. But he's also seen as a liability more broadly because he's fixated on 2020. He still says that the election wasn't run properly and that he should be the winner. And Governor Chris Christie, the former New Jersey governor, who's also probably going to run if anybody ever dares to declare, he said, let's forget about 2020. It's over. He was the one who said it most bluntly. But then Jewish reporters spoke with Lee Zeldin, a Jewish congressman who was one of Trump's fiercest defenders while Trump was in office and who's now running for governor of New York. And we asked him about that, and he said the same thing. I'm not going to talk about 2020 because that's not what people I talk to want to talk about. And he even conceded in so many words that he wouldn't bring Trump to New York to campaign. And this was a guy who, unlike Chris Christie, unlike Glenn Youngkin, who was very close to Trump.
Right. Chris Christie, certainly strange to hear that name come back as a presidential candidate. Let's talk about the other big name who is not there, the late Sheldon Adelson. I mean, why is the RJC in Las Vegas? It's because Sheldon Adelson was such a major factor in bankrolling it. What does it say that his presence is no longer there, both for the RJC and also just in terms of impacting on the Republican Party in terms of the issues that were important to him, such as, for example, support for Israel?
Yeah, the one thing that everybody was uniform on was support for Israel. I think Adelson's impact on the party was long lasting, and that's what people said in the portions of the events that memorialized him. And I think it was Ron Dermer who said it. I forget exactly how he put it, but he basically said that Miriam Adelson's going to uphold his legacy. Period. She's going to remain as committed to the Republican Party and to Israel as he was, and she's running things now. I think that you saw, what was interesting was that she said that it's important in her brief remarks when she was memorializing Sheldon. She said it's important to bring Jews together across denominations, and it's important for Republicans to reach across the aisle. That we can't abandon, from her perspective, abandon the Democrats to anti-Israel forces. That would be another very.
And okay, Ron, sorry, we did lose you there briefly. I'm just going to explain to some of our viewers who don't follow U.S. and Republican politics as closely as you do. Miriam Adelson is the widow of the late Sheldon Adelson.